So it's the second day of September and I'm sitting here drinking a cup of coffee on my front porch, and it's a beautiful morning. It's cool. I like to come out here and sit, especially early fall or in the fall or spring, because the front porch is so nice. But I thought it'd be cool to do a little farm tour today so you guys can kind of see who we are, what our farm looks like. I need to finish up some chores before we start all that though. I gotta do some dishes and clean up the kitchen from breakfast, probably feed my sourdough starter, and I also need to feed the animals still. So I'll take you guys along all of that, and then I will show you around our place. So this front field is about 5 to 6 acres, and we have a pond down there. It really doesn't hold very much water. I think one day we would like to redo the whole pond. I think all the trees and the soil that we have just doesn't let it hold very much water, and it leaks a lot. So hopefully one day we could get to where we can clean all of it out, maybe take some trees out and get it in better condition. Alright, so walking up here, we call this the orchard. This is when we first moved here. I knew I wanted to put fruit trees in as soon as we moved here so we could start getting some harvests in a couple years. That's just what's happening. I think this is our 4th season with these 4 fruit trees right here. We have apples. We actually have apples on both of these. We had 1 apple on this one, which this tree right here is a year behind this tree because the first one the deer ate and it came back, but it died again and I had to replace it the next year. And then this apple tree has a ton not a ton, but this is its first year producing apples, and we have quite a few apples. I think in the next week or so we can actually start harvesting these apples and doing something with them. It's not much, but you know, I'm really excited because this is our first year, and it just gets better from here on out, I hope. So looking at this, okay, so we have 2 apple trees next to each other to pollinate. Then I have a peach tree, and then on the very end there is a cherry tree. And these actually were the first 4 that I planted when we first moved here. I knew I still wanted more fruit trees, but it's very expensive when you start ordering trees and fruit and just trying to decide like what you wanted to plant. And the conditions of, you know, this is full sun right here. It's close to a hydrant from our cows. So it's a perfect location for our little orchard. So last year I ordered these 3 peach trees up here. So there's 2 down there, and then there's 1 right here. This one is from a totally different company than the 2 down there. Of course, this one is actually taller than me. It's pretty small still though. It's not too much taller than me right now, but these ones, I am just blown away of how much growth these trees have done in just a year's time. I mean, they're absolutely huge. So looking at this peach tree, this is the older peach tree that I've planted with the original 4, and it didn't produce any peaches this year. I think we got a late frost that kind of bit all that. My dad's trees were kind of the same way. He didn't get any peaches this year. But last year we had 1 peach on this tree, and something got it halfway through. So I'm hoping next year, I'm hoping all of these trees will start producing fruit, because I don't see why these 2 over here, these new ones, I don't see why they wouldn't start producing. This cherry tree down here has been a sad story. It's doing good now, but when I first got it, when it was shipped here, it was a little awkward. It was like a little stick, and there'd be a branch down here on this, like 2 on the same side, and then you go way up and there'd be another branch. And for 4 seasons now, I have just pruned and pruned this tree, and I'm telling you, next year I am not touching this tree. I'm just gonna let it grow, because now it's a little taller than me on when the branches are starting up here, so it's gonna be a little harder for me to start harvesting. I'll have to get a ladder, but I did want it off the ground quite a bit because we do have deer that walk through here. So I really like the way this tree looks now, but it was a sad story for a couple seasons. But now I think we got it to where I need it. We'll just have to get a ladder and harvest the cherries one day. Alright, so this is where one of our water sources in the front is to water our cows, and it's an easy way to water the fruit trees too whenever you don't get rain for a couple weeks. So that's exactly why I planted all these trees right here, is because there's a water source and it's full of sun right here. Alright, so water source is here, orchard, and then you move to the left over here, you get the pond down there. So this is our entrance to the side of the new field that we put in this past year. We would like to start having 3 sections, but right now it's just mainly 2. But we want to rotate how the cows graze throughout these fields. And this has really taken some time for us to do. It took a really long time just to fence out all the front, which there was fence here before, but it was awful. So we ripped everything out. The cows moved over to my brother-in-law's farm for a really long time, so we could start putting in all this fence in. And we put some pipe in, welded it. I mean, everything's just new. So this is the second part. We just open this gate, we let the cows in, and we close this gate off so this grass over here can start growing now, which they're in the front field right now, which in a couple days we'll be transferring them to this second field. And then we'll close off the gate, let this side grow up when it rains and let it grow up for a couple weeks, and then we'll rotate them back to the front. But this side over here has mainly oak trees right now, and it has grass, but we ended up just keeping all these trees so the cows could have a little bit of shade in the summertime if they wanted to come and lay down, which we have plenty of oak trees everywhere. That's why we called ourselves the Rustic Oak Farm. It's just nothing but oaks around here. But this is a neat little area. It's the side of our house, and all this new fencing was put in not that long ago. So we get to the back here. This is an area where it's been bulldozed. We bulldozed all of these trees to make a pasture back here for more of our cows and to add a garden. So once I get walked up here, I'll show you. Okay, so I just came from the side of the house, that little side field over here. And then this is mainly in the back of our house. We have all this lumber, all these trees to cut up this winter and clean up this whole half. I say half because starting right here and over is basically all cleaned up already. And then from, here all the way down is full of laid over trees that we still need to cut up and get rid of the root balls, burn some brush. So this is our main project this winter, is to clean up this side. So hopefully, I'm hoping one day it's definitely not going to look like this. Once we get all this wood and everything cleared out of here and all the root balls put into a big pile and start burning off, have someone come in and level the ground a little bit better so we could put some grass seed down and just clean it all up and make it a really nice cow pasture. So looking back here, we got some woods. You could still walk back in there. There's a little trail back there that kind of lines the whole property. We got a lot of deer that come in through there. That's where I shot my deer last year for the very first time on our property. I was so proud. So then you look over here, this is our pig house. We don't have any pigs right now. We're gonna get some pigs in the spring. We used to have 2 mamas that had babies, and we did all that, and that was a lot of work. So we ended up selling them off. One of them actually we butchered, and she's the one that's carrying us right now in our freezer with all the meat. So that's why we don't have pigs right now, is we're taking a little bit of a break until spring and get more, because we have plenty of meat from her. She was like over 500 to 600 pounds, so there's plenty of meat in our freezer still. We have got to fix the fence back here for the new pigs this spring. This is where the pigs were, and look at all this grass. It's amazing. This was our very first pig house. It actually was our very first chicken house whenever we first got married and my dad let us have it. We just brought it over here. So like whenever the feeder pigs, when they're really tiny, we like to just use this in the beginning and have like a little fence. It's actually right here. We'll use this little cattle panel right here, or actually a hog panel, and we'll just wrap it around this little building right here, and that way they can't get out of these cattle panels that you can't hardly see that's around here. They can get out of there when they're really little, so this is what we use in the very beginning. And over here is our chicken pen, the back side of it. We built this chicken house at our previous house. We had a bunch of chickens at our previous house, which we've had chickens ever since we've been married, honestly, but we actually have way too many chickens in here right now. We have I don't know if you can see, a chicken tractor way over here that we built, but we need to fix it because we had a raccoon get in there underneath and kill a bunch of our chickens, so we need to work on that before we put them back in there. So looking back here, the pig house, and then this is the cute little chicken house my husband built. And I have to say, my husband has built all these little buildings out of plywood. So you can see we have a little brick path here that actually, this was all free. This was already here. This is actually a path in the very front that I took out and laid here. And we put our handprints in this concrete, did something fun. I have a little wreath on there. And this is what the inside looks like. There's probably someone laying in here probably. Yep. You can kind of see her right there. But this is what it looks like on the inside. We need to take that thing down because the flies were so bad in here this year. And we got one laying, so I better close the door. So looking at the chicken house from this view, and then you come over here, we have a little road that goes to our backfield back here, and there's a little gate that we can pull the stock trailer in to get our pigs or the cows, or get the truck back there to, haul out some wood or whatever we're doing back there. So this is where I water the chickens and the dog on this side. And then you look over here, this is our big main garden. This is our second entrance into the garden. This is actually the entrance that we use all the time because it's closer to the animals and closer to our house whenever we're harvesting and taking everything back inside the house. But alright, so backing up here, if you hear my kids in the background, they're acting like they're driving trucks. It sounds like they're yelling, but they're on their little tractors and trucks and stuff. But this is our main garden. Believe it or not, this was full of trees. All of this was full of oak trees and cedar trees, and we had somebody come in and bulldoze a bunch of this stuff so we could have this big garden, because all back here was just full of trees and it was shade. There's nowhere for a garden, so we ended up putting all this in, and I absolutely love having a big garden again. It's been such a really good year this year. So I'll take you through here. This is the main entrance at the beginning. We just have cattle panels right now for closing everything out, like the dog, and hopefully it keeps the deer out, but I know it won't. They can just jump the fence, but we have a lot of deer that come through here. But yeah, this is our big garden. So this is where I spend a lot of my time through the summer, spring, summer, and fall. I'm always in here harvesting something, planting something, cleaning something. This has been our very first year growing into this big garden. So we have really bad soil here. It's like creek gravel. Here, I'll just show you. It's like creek gravel everywhere. And there's just not a very good spot to have a garden. So once we leveled everything off, you know, it looked really good. I mean, there was rocks to pick up and stuff, but still couldn't get a shovel in it. So we had to lay a no-till garden. And basically that's just mulch and dirt. And hopefully over time, everything will start breaking down into really good soil. And what we did in the beginning, all these little rows that you see that are covered in plastic, we dug out probably about a foot down and dug out all these massive rocks. I mean, it was terrible. I'll say that. It was like the biggest job was pulling these rocks out and digging them out. I ordered some really good cow manure / soil mix from a farm, and that's what really has made this garden come to life. We laid all that soil in these rows, and we put the mulch from a tree service. We ordered a couple truckloads of that from a tree service, and we ended up laying all the mulch in the walking paths around all the garden rows. And that's, looking at it now, it's such a job because you're gonna have to keep up and order mulch every year and fill in some spots that break down, because mulch breaks down really quick. So it's definitely an investment to keep up with that every year. And I hate that I have to do that, but I wanted a garden that was in the ground instead of making all these raised beds. The raised beds that we made a couple years ago are completely falling apart, and it's a total waste of money, which we didn't use treated wood or anything like that because of the chemicals. And you can see here, they are breaking down. We have got to fix this fall. All my boxes are falling apart. And my plan was to take some of these concrete blocks and, you know, putting them together, but I'm not sure if I want to do that now, because for one, they don't stay even. We're gonna have to like either mortar them together so they don't move over the years, or I could buy galvanized raised beds. I would have to buy 4 of them, so they could be pricey. So I'm gonna have to figure something out about that. I just wanted an in-ground garden is what I wanted, like our last house. But our last house we just tilled, and we had amazing dirt there, and this was a challenge. This was something new that I had to learn off of YouTube and Google of how to do a no-till garden. And it is very expensive to start, I will say that. It hurt my heart a little bit that I put so much money into something like this, but I started thinking long term. Laying the whole thing, yes, was expensive, but over time I thought about how much food we would get out of this garden and how much we could possibly save on, you know, harvesting our own vegetables and fruits and stuff. So we are through the main part of laying the whole entire thing. So now we just have to maintain with just keeping the soil, you know, built up, and laying the mulch for helping the weeds, you know, stay down. Because nobody likes weeds growing in a garden. That's where a lot of people, I think, give up, is whenever the weeds start taking over, it gets overwhelming. So that's another point that I was going to say is, you know, it may be expensive going this route, which we had to, but the mulch suppresses the weeds where I don't want it, And then the rows, it's super easy just to pick out weeds, and I use a lot of these rows I have garden fabric on, you can see here, but you know, some of them I don't have garden fabric. Like over here I just have ground up leaves, and that's worked perfect for keeping grass down. But it's not a problem. Me and my husband, maybe once a month, we'll go in and just weed all the weeds that we can find that pop up through the mulch or in the rows. And it really doesn't take as much time as it did at our old house when we had all that soil that just grew grass like crazy. So we do have these garden boxes. We have 4 big ones. And down here, I use these containers. I think they're like mineral containers from cattle farms. And we got off a guy that my husband knows from work, and some from my brother and sister-in-law. But I use those for my tomatoes. They have worked great for, I think it's been 3 years now that I've been using these containers for my tomatoes. So I try not to use too many containers. I think next year I have these containers right here, which they never do good for me. And I have some in the center way down there. They just don't really do good for me because it gets so hot. There's no trees around this garden right here to shade anything. So you have to keep up with, you know, watering. I'm trying to get away from container gardening and just completely just using the boxes either in my tomato buckets and what's in the ground. I don't have time for container gardening anymore. It's really time consuming. And the other thing that I have down here are my herbs. So this is what I'm keeping for next year. I have, you can't hardly see what they look like, but they're old semi drums. There's 2 of them, and then there's another, I think there's 2 of these buckets over here that house all my herbs in them. And it's worked great because this spot right here is one of the most shaded spots that I have in the evening from these trees over here. Whenever the sun comes over, they'll come and shade these herbs. Oh, you can see there, someone's coming in and stealing some green beans. So last year we rushed laying this whole entire thing, which I wanted to rush, not my husband. And it didn't do good. I had really bad compost that I ordered, and I just thought, oh, I'll just lay all the compost and, you know, everything will be great. And it wasn't. So I had to completely redo my rows and put them with that new soil that I ordered from that cattle farm. So it was a huge challenge last year. It was very heartbreaking. I prayed a lot, you know, because I really wanted this to work. This is something that I can enjoy. It's something that I am a stay-at-home mom, so this is something that I can do while caring for my kids, and my kids can be in the garden with me, which they love being in the garden. So after all those challenges last year, I have to say we are in the beginning of September right now. So this season so far has been amazing. God has definitely answered my prayers from last year, and we've got quite a bit of a harvest off a lot of things this year, probably more than we've ever had in the past. And there were some challenges in the very beginning, but everything worked out perfectly fine. Okay. So looking at the garden, this is in our backyard. All these chicken houses, pig houses, the garden, the back field. And you can see we have a little chicken tractor back there that we need to work on, make it more predator proof. so the chickens will be safe. So we look over here. This is the other side of my house. We got a little swing here on this oak tree for the kids. They like to play in this little dirt pile. So this area is our small little berry patch. Okay, so looking at the berry patch, this area right here was our very first garden boxes. You can see our new garden, everything's way back there. This was the little area that was full sun whenever we first moved here. Our house is right here. This is like the main area that we could find that following spring. We moved here in December, so that following spring we had to rush and find a spot to put a garden. And we found out, you know, it was really rocky, so we had to build those 4 garden boxes that you saw back there that are falling apart now. We had to build those quickly and order some soil and put them in there. So this is one of our very first areas that we worked on when we first moved here. And you would not believe how many times I've moved these concrete blocks. So we have this cute little path again. These are the same bricks over by the chicken house. And I decided to put them in this walking path right here, which I have this little area right here that keeps growing grass. We've had a horrible time with growing grass right here. So I need to put some boiling water right there. Anyways, looking through here, look at these cute little concrete swans. This one's kind of all broke, but I still thought he was cute. My little duck. And a cute little path to the greenhouse. This is the greenhouse from Harbor Freight. It needs a little work. We've had it up for 3 years now, and the panels really need to be changed out. We've changed this half of the panels, and this half needs to be done. And along the sides here need to be redone too. But we just put the little table in this year, and again there's some brick. So this is where I house all the spring plants in here. And I can't really use it through the summertime because it gets really hot in there. And there's 2 little windows up top. But yes, it's so cute. And it works just fine for all my spring stuff. So looking over here, this is actually supposed to be a strawberry box, which this gets a lot of shade. And I don't think they're going to do very good right there, but I'm just going to keep hoping that they'll do something one year. These actually just got planted last year, so I need to work on probably making the soil just a little bit better. And here is another original box that we built along with those 4 big boxes. This actually used to be an onion bed, but I turned this whole entire area into the berry patch. Right, so I planted all these new strawberries this year, and I'm kind of regretting it a little bit because this box is falling apart, and I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do next year, because I know through the winter time this is not gonna hold together. And these strawberries are actually doing really good. This is a strawberry bed, and this is a strawberry bed. These are the original strawberry beds that we put in 4 seasons ago. So this week I ended up ripping this whole bed out because it's going on 4 years, so it's time to rip them all out and plant new ones in, which these ones have never really did as good. I mean, they produced, but they were super tiny. So I ripped those out. We're gonna start fresh next year. I have mulch right now covering it because this thing gets full of weeds, and we have to weed this thing like crazy every year. So I covered this in mulch, you know, so when spring rolls around, we're in September right now, so when spring rolls around I will be planting this whole entire bed in new fresh strawberries. This is a different variety. This actually does okay, not the best, But I think next year I might have to rip this whole bed out and start completely over, because this is on 4 seasons now, and it just needs a cleanup and probably some fresh compost, and you know, just everything needs to be freshened up a little bit. But I think I'm going to hold on to these for next year, so we'll actually have strawberries, because I think we'll get strawberries out of that one because they're brand new. We won't get hardly any whenever I plant this one next year, but we got to have something next year. So I'm in the process of working on, this used to be a whole entire row of strawberries right here, which they never did good, ever. So I'm just tired of it. I'm just gonna rip all of it out, and I'm gonna lay mulch down and make this a walking path. So it's a lot easier, because these are blackberries right here. So it's easier to walk through here and so we can have room to pick. So I think in the long run, downsizing, I went too big, too fast, and now I'm downsizing back to just this bed, that bed, and then I don't know if that bed will work or not, but so I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 beds of strawberries, which is plenty for our family. This is actually a row going this way of blackberries. These are raspberries right here, and then halfway through that row is continued blackberries, and then we have this row right here of more blackberries. And if I would have known more about berry planting, I would have never planted this close together, because you can't even walk in this path. Same with this one. This one, through the summer, which I've already cleaned this up last week, I cut all this out and ripped all the stuff that was coming out of the walking paths. But everything is too close together. So if I'm not redoing my berry patch, but if we ever moved and wanted to start over, I would know in the future not to plant these berries as close together. You can see they're swinging on their little swing over there. So I will continue to work on this fall and get it all cleaned up. So this next spring, hopefully we'll have really nice growing berries.